She never wanted to lie, but love makes people do strange things. Emily Collins had never thought her life would come to this, sitting in a small-town cafe after hours, staring at the same letter that had been haunting her for weeks. The words were simple but sharp. Final notice. Her brother Daniel was drowning in debt, and the water was rising fast. Every day brought another call, another knock, another reminder that time was running out. Daniel had always been the dreamer, kind-hearted, hopeful, but careless. He'd borrowed money to start a business that never took off, and now the debt collectors were circling. Emily worked double shifts just to keep him afloat, pouring coffee for customers who never remembered her name. She'd sold her car, her jewelry, even her mother's old piano. Nothing made a dent. The smell of roasted coffee beans and rain drifted through the open window as she sat at the counter, exhausted. Her apron was stained, her eyes red from crying. She had no idea what else to do. Then the cafe door opened, not with the usual rush of regulars, but with the quiet entrance of a man she'd never seen before. He was tall, neatly dressed, carrying himself with an ease that only came from money. His name was Ethan Carter. He looked out of place in their little town, like someone who belonged in glass buildings and business meetings, not an old cafe with flickering lights. "Are you still open?" he asked, his voice calm but deep, with a tone that made people listen. Emily nodded, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "Yeah, just barely." He smiled slightly as if her exhaustion amused him in a gentle way. "1 black coffee, please." As she poured, she noticed his watch. Expensive, foreign, the kind that probably cost more than her rent. He noticed her noticing. Instead of being awkward, he said something unexpected. "You look like someone who's got a lot on her mind." Emily tried to laugh it off. "I guess that's what happens when bills don't stop coming." He didn't smile this time. "Debts have a way of changing people." She froze. It was such a simple statement, but it hit deep. He had no idea how true it was for her. For a few minutes, neither of them spoke. The cafe was empty, the rain tapping softly against the glass. Then Ethan set down his cup and said quietly, "What if I told you I could make it go away?" Emily blinked. "Make what go away?" "Your brother's debt," he said flatly, as if he already knew. Her breath caught. How do you know about that?" He looked straight into her eyes. "Because I know who he owes, and I know they don't forgive easily." She stepped back, her heart pounding. "Are you one of them?" Ethan shook his head. "No, but I can help you." She didn't know whether to run or to listen. There was something strange about him, calm but serious. "Why would you help me?" He took a deep breath. "Because I need something too." "What if a stranger offered you a deal that could change everything?" He leaned forward, his voice quiet, deliberate. "I need someone to pretend to be my fiancé. Just for 6 months." Emily stared at him, waiting for a joke that never came. "You're not serious?" "I am," he said. "My father is very ill. His only wish is to see me settled before the end of the year. I promised him I'd marry before his birthday." Her heart was racing. "So you want me to fake an engagement, just to make your father happy?" "Yes," he replied calmly. "In return, I'll pay off your brother's entire debt." "Every cent," Emily laughed nervously. "You can't be serious." "That's crazy." Ethan didn't blink. "You need help." "I need a fiancé. It's simple, simple." That word echoed in her mind, but nothing about this was simple. This was insane, unreal, dangerous. She crossed her arms. "You could pick anyone." "Why me?" His gaze softened. "Because I've seen you before, Emily. You work hard. You don't quit. You look like someone who wouldn't lie for money unless it meant saving someone she loves." Her throat tightened. He wasn't wrong. Ethan stood and placed a small business card on the counter. "Think about it. You have until tomorrow. Call me if you're ready to change everything." Then he left, just as quietly as he had entered, leaving behind the faint scent of rain and espresso. Emily sat there frozen. The hum of the fridge filled the silence. She picked up the card, Ethan Carter, Carter and Reeves Architecture. Below it, a number written in perfect handwriting. She laughed bitterly. "Yeah, right," she whispered. Like I'd ever do something that crazy. But as she locked the cafe and walked home through the rain, that name kept echoing in her mind. Ethan Carter, the man who could erase her brother's debt, the man who offered her a deal that sounded like fiction. Sometimes desperation makes you listen to the wrong kind of hope. That night, Emily couldn't sleep. The letter was still on her table. The words "final notice" seemed to glow in the dark. She thought about Daniel. How he'd given up trying. How guilt had crushed him more than the money ever could. Her phone buzzed. Another message from the lender. Payment overdue. Final warning. She shut her eyes. Her hands were shaking. By morning, she had made up her mind. The city air smelled of wet asphalt as she stood outside a tall glass building downtown, Carter and Reeves. Her reflection in the glass looked strange, a tired woman wearing borrowed confidence. She took a breath and stepped inside. The receptionist smiled. "Do you have an appointment?" "Not really." "I'm here to see Ethan Carter." The receptionist raised an eyebrow but picked up the phone. A few minutes later, a tall man in a gray suit appeared. Ethan looked just as composed as before. Maybe even more. "I didn't think you'd come," he said quietly. "I didn't think I would either," Emily admitted. He gestured toward his office. It was modern, minimalist, like him. She stood awkwardly while he poured coffee. "So," Ethan said, handing her a cup. "You've decided?" Emily took a sip, her hands trembling slightly. "If I do this, how real does it have to look?" He met her gaze. "Completely. My father can't suspect anything. Neither can my family. We'll announce the engagement, attend events, maybe even live together for a while. You'll get your brother's debt cleared by next week." Her pulse quickened. "Live together? It's for appearances? Nothing else," he said calmly. "There are rules, boundaries. You'll have full freedom. But in public, we act like a couple." Emily tried to steady her breathing. "And when it's over?" 6 months, Ethan said. "Then you walk away, debt-free." The words hit her like thunder. Debt-free. She looked down at her trembling hands. This was madness, but it was also mercy. "I'll do it," she whispered. Ethan didn't smile. He simply opened a drawer and pulled out a small velvet box. Inside was a diamond ring, delicate and beautiful. "For the world," he said, "not for us." Emily stared at the ring, the light catching on every edge. She slid it onto her finger and something strange happened. The air shifted. Suddenly, this wasn't a plan or a contract. It was a step into something she couldn't predict. What if one lie could save someone you love, but destroy you in return? The next few hours passed in a blur. Ethan arranged everything. A quiet announcement, a staged photo for the press, a dinner reservation for their first official date. His world moved fast, precise, like a clock that never stopped ticking. Emily felt like she was watching her own life from a distance. By evening, she was back home, sitting on the edge of her bed, staring at the ring. It sparkled softly under the lamp, like it didn't belong to her. Daniel walked in. "Hey, Em, what's that on your hand?" Emily quickly hid it. "Nothing, just a job thing," he frowned. "You're not working yourself sick again, are you?" "I can figure this out," she forced a smile. "Don't worry. It's handled." But her chest hurt as she said it, because for the first time, she wasn't sure what she was handling anymore. Outside, thunder rolled in the distance. The storm was coming, and she could feel it, not in the sky, but in her heart. She stood by the window, the city lights reflecting off the glass. Tomorrow, she would walk into Ethan's world as his fiancée. She would smile for cameras, hold his hand, tell people they were in love. It was just a lie. Just a temporary act. But as she touched the ring again, something deep inside whispered, "What if pretending becomes the only truth you have left?" And with that thought, Emily turned off the light, unaware that her life was about to change in ways she could never imagine. What happens when pretending starts to feel real? Emily never thought she'd wake up one morning wearing a diamond ring that wasn't truly hers. The first day of her engagement began with silence. No celebration, no romance, just a new life built entirely on a lie. The contract was signed. The debt was gone. Her brother was safe. But Emily wasn't. Not really. Ethan Carter's world was nothing like hers. His house was all glass and quiet, a place where even the walls seemed afraid to make noise. Every morning, He left early in crisp suits and came home smelling faintly of rain and cologne. He wasn't unkind, just distant. He spoke in short, calm sentences, always polite but never personal. To him, this was a business arrangement. To her, it was survival. The first few days were awkward. They practiced how to act like a real couple, how to smile for the camera, how to hold hands naturally, how to look at each other like they shared something real. Ethan treated it like rehearsal. Emily tried to treat it like work, but the lines blurred fast. At the first family dinner, Ethan's mother hugged Emily so tightly she almost cried. His sister Claire chatted about wedding plans and color themes as if it were all real. Emily smiled through it all, her stomach twisting with guilt. She was lying to kind people who believed in love, and every word of it burned. When the dinner ended, Ethan's father, an older man with kind eyes and a weak smile, pulled Emily aside. "You've made my son happy," he said softly. "That's all I ever wanted." The words nearly broke her. In the car ride home, neither of them spoke. The silence was heavy, the city lights blurring through the window. Finally, Ethan said, "You did well tonight." Emily forced a small laugh. "Thanks. Guess I should add professional liar to my resume." He glanced at her. "You're not lying. You're helping me keep a promise." His tone was steady, but there was something underneath. Something unspoken. Maybe guilt. Maybe sadness. She couldn't tell. She wanted to ask what he was really hiding behind those calm eyes, but she didn't. Instead, she just said, "Well, your father seems like a good man." "He is," Ethan said quietly. "He doesn't deserve to die disappointed." Emily's chest tightened. For a moment, he didn't look like the powerful man who had hired her. He looked human. Lost. How long can two strangers pretend to be in love before it starts to feel true? Weeks passed. Their lie began to settle into rhythm. Publicly, they were the perfect couple, holding hands at charity dinners, laughing at cafes, attending events where photographers waited to capture their every smile. Privately, they lived separate lives in the same house. At first, it was easy to keep distance, but slowly the walls began to crack. One morning, Emily found Ethan asleep on the couch, papers scattered around him. He looked exhausted. For the first time, she saw the man behind the perfect suits, the one who stayed up late fixing other people's problems while forgetting his own. She covered him with a blanket, whispering softly, "You don't always have to carry everything alone." He stirred but didn't wake. She went to make coffee, her chest aching with something she couldn't name. Later that day, he found her sketching by the window. "You draw?" he asked, surprised. "Just when I need to think," she said shyly. He studied the sketch, a simple drawing of the cafe she used to work in. "You're good," he said, genuine admiration in his voice. That night, over dinner, something changed. Their conversation flowed naturally for the first time. They talked about favorite movies, embarrassing memories, small dreams that no one else knew. Ethan even laughed, a real laugh, and Emily felt a spark inside her chest she hadn't felt in years, but she reminded herself, it wasn't real. None of it was. Still, she couldn't ignore the way his eyes softened when he looked at her now, or how her heart sped up every time he smiled. The line between pretending and feeling was disappearing fast. Every secret comes with a cost, and some truths refuse to stay buried. One evening, as rain tapped gently against the glass walls, Emily wandered into Ethan's study. She had been looking for a book, but found something else instead. A framed photograph of a woman she didn't recognize. She was beautiful, with kind eyes and a soft smile that looked heartbreakingly familiar. Emily picked up the frame, confused. Ethan appeared at the door. "What are you doing in here?" She startled, nearly dropping the photo. I was just looking for a book." "I'm sorry." He stepped closer, his expression unreadable. "You found her? Who?" she asked. "My mother," he said quietly. "She passed away 3 years ago." Emily placed the photo back gently. "She's beautiful, She used to say love isn't something you find, he murmured. It's something that finds you when you stop pretending you don't need it. The air between them went still. Neither spoke for several seconds. Then Ethan turned away, clearing his throat. We should get ready. There's a dinner tonight. But Emily couldn't shake that moment. For the first time, she saw the loneliness he hid behind his calm, controlled exterior. And maybe in that loneliness she saw herself too. That night, while standing under flashing lights at another event, Ethan reached for her hand, not because cameras were watching, but because he wanted to. His fingers brushed hers softly, and she felt warmth spread through her chest. When the flashes stopped, he didn't let go. The heart doesn't know the difference between pretending and falling. The following weeks blurred together. Dinners, smiles, laughter, stolen glances. What began as a contract had turned into something dangerous. Emily tried to keep reminding herself of the truth. 6 months, then it's over. But every time Ethan brushed her hair from her face or laughed at one of her bad jokes, that truth slipped further away. One evening, she found him standing outside on the balcony, watching the city lights. The night air was cool, the sky clear. You okay? She asked softly. He nodded. Just thinking. My father's health is getting worse. He's the reason I'm doing all this. Emily stepped beside him. You don't have to explain. I get it. He turned to her, eyes glinting under the soft light. Do you? She held his gaze. You made a promise. You're keeping it. That's rare. For a moment the world felt small, just the two of them, close enough to hear each other breathe. Then Ethan said quietly, You make pretending feel easy. Her heart stopped. Before she could respond, his phone buzzed. He stepped away, answering quickly, his tone shifting to business. The moment was gone, but the feeling lingered. That night, she couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw him, his voice, his smile, the way his hand felt when it brushed hers. She was supposed to be acting, but her heart didn't seem to care about the rules anymore. But love built on lies always stands on borrowed time. By now, their engagement had become the talk of the town. Magazines called them the perfect couple. People adored their story. They believed every smile, every look, and sometimes Emily believed it too. Then one evening, something unexpected happened. She came home to find Ethan waiting at the piano, a glass of wine in hand. My father wants us to announce a wedding date, he said. Emily froze. A date? He nodded. He wants to see the wedding before Christmas. Her heart raced. But, Ethan, this was supposed to end in December. He looked at her, his eyes soft but unreadable. We'll figure it out. For now, we'll just keep pretending. Emily tried to smile, but her hands trembled. A real wedding meant real pressure, real lies, and possibly real heartbreak. She excused herself and went upstairs, her mind spinning. Maybe she had gone too far. Maybe this was the line she couldn't cross. But then she heard a knock at her door. Ethan stood there quiet, holding a small box. I know this isn't what we planned, he said, but you've done more for me than I can ever repay. He opened the box. Inside was a delicate silver bracelet. A thank you, he said softly. Emily's throat tightened. You didn't have to. I wanted to, he replied. Because you make things feel different around here. Their eyes met. And for the first time, neither of them looked away. The silence stretched, heavy and fragile. And then, Ethan's phone buzzed again. He frowned, answered, and his face went pale. What is it? Emily asked. He looked at her, his voice low. It's my father. He's asking to move the wedding up. To next month. Emily's heart dropped. Next month. 1 month until a wedding that wasn't real. 1 month until every lie would become impossible to hide. And as she stood there in the doorway, staring at the man she wasn't supposed to love, she realized something terrifying. She wasn't pretending anymore. Sometimes, the truth hurts more than the lie. Emily stood in front of the mirror, wearing a pale silver gown that shimmered under the morning light. The city outside buzzed faintly, but her world had gone quiet. In a few weeks, she was supposed to marry Ethan Carter. At least, that's what everyone believed. The wedding invitations were out. The press had printed headlines calling them the couple of the year, and Ethan's father was smiling again for the first time in months. But deep inside, Emily was falling apart. Every smile she gave, every promise she spoke, it all felt like a quiet betrayal. The contract had started as a way to save her brother, but somewhere along the way, she'd lost control of her heart. She wasn't pretending anymore, and that scared her more than anything. Ethan knocked softly on her door. "We're going to be late. My sister's waiting downstairs." Emily turned, trying to steady her voice. "I'll be right there." He looked at her for a moment, really looked, as if searching for something she was afraid to say. Then he nodded and walked away, leaving behind a silence that felt heavier than words. The closer they got to the truth, the harder it became to hide. That evening, they attended a charity gala, another event, another performance. Ethan, as always, looked effortless. Emily, however, felt like she was standing on thin ice. Cameras flashed. People whispered about how beautiful they looked together. Every compliment made her chest tighten. Ethan's father sat nearby, weak but smiling proudly. "You've made my son a better man," he told Emily. "Don't ever let go of him." Her throat burned. She wanted to tell him the truth, that she wasn't the woman he thought she was, that this entire love story was built on paper. But when she saw the happiness in his eyes, she couldn't do it. She smiled instead. During the slow dance, Ethan placed his hand gently on her back. "You okay?" he asked softly. She nodded, forcing a smile. "Just tired. Maybe we can leave early," he offered. "We don't have to stay." "No," she whispered. "Your father's watching. Let's give him his moment." They swayed under the golden lights, surrounded by laughter and music that felt miles away. Emily rested her head on Ethan's shoulder, and for a few seconds, everything felt painfully real. The warmth of his hand, the sound of his heartbeat, the feeling that this could actually be love. But reality returned too fast, because just as the song ended, a familiar voice broke through the crowd. "Emily?" She froze. It was Daniel, her brother. His clothes were wrinkled, his face pale. He shouldn't have been there, but he was. He looked at her, then at Ethan. "We need to talk. Now." Ethan frowned. "Is everything okay?" Daniel shook his head. "No, nothing about this is okay." Every lie eventually meets the light. They slipped out through the side door, away from the music and laughter. The cold night air hit Emily like a slap. "Daniel, what are you doing here?" she hissed. "I came to fix this," he said, breathless. "You don't have to do this anymore." "Do what?" Ethan asked, confusion spreading across his face. Daniel's voice broke. "She only agreed to marry you to save me. To pay off my debt." Ethan froze. "What are you talking about?" Emily's heart dropped. "Daniel, stop!" But it was too late. Daniel looked at her helplessly. "I couldn't keep quiet anymore. You did this for me, and now it's done. I paid the last of it. You're free, Em." The world went silent. Ethan's expression shifted. Shock, then disbelief, then something darker. "Is that true?" Emily couldn't speak. Her hands trembled as she whispered, "Ethan, I didn't want you to find out like this." He stepped back. "So it's all been a lie?" Tears filled her eyes. "No. It started that way, yes, but I never meant for it to go this far." He looked shattered. "You made me believe in something real, Emily. You made my family believe." "My father," his voice cracked. "Do you have any idea what this will do to him?" "I know," she said weakly. "I know, and I hate myself for it. But I had no choice." "My brother—" "You always had a choice," he said coldly. The words hit her like a blade. Ethan turned away, his jaw clenched. "Leave before my father finds out. I'll handle the rest." Emily reached for him, her voice trembling. "Ethan, please." But he pulled his hand away. "Don't. Just don't." Then he walked back inside, leaving her standing in the dark with rain beginning to fall. Daniel tried to speak, but Emily just shook her head. "Go home, Danny, please." Her heart was breaking in slow motion. The lie that had once saved her brother had just destroyed the one person she never meant to hurt. Sometimes love doesn't end with anger. It ends with silence. The next morning, the house was quiet. Ethan's things were gone from the hallway. The coffee machine was off, the dining table empty. Emily stood by the window, holding the bracelet he'd given her. It still smelled faintly like him. Every memory, every smile, every late-night conversation played in her head like a film she couldn't stop. She wanted to call him, to explain, but what could she say? That she had lied out of love? That she had fallen for him by accident? Words weren't enough anymore. The door opened softly. Claire, Ethan's sister, stepped in. She looked hurt, confused. "He told me what happened," she said quietly. "Emily, was it all really fake?" Emily swallowed hard. "It was supposed to be, but somewhere along the way, it wasn't." Claire sighed. Her eyes filled with sadness. "He cared about you, you know. I've never seen him like that before." "I cared too," Emily whispered. "More than I should have," Claire nodded slowly. "He just needs time. But his father, he's heartbroken." Tears spilled down Emily's face. "I never wanted to hurt any of you." "I know," Claire said softly. "But sometimes good intentions still leave scars." After she left, Emily packed her things quietly. She couldn't stay there, not after everything. As she zipped her suitcase, she found the note Ethan had left on her nightstand the night before the gala. It was short, written in his neat handwriting. "You've made my home feel alive again." "Thank you, Em." Her chest tightened. The words felt like a goodbye written before goodbye ever came. But the end of a lie doesn't always mean the end of love. Days turned into weeks. Emily moved back into her small apartment above the cafe. The ring was gone, the debt was gone, and yet, she'd never felt emptier. She went back to work, making coffee for strangers, pretending to smile. Life looked the same as before, but she wasn't the same person anymore. Sometimes, she'd catch herself turning when a doorbell chimed, hoping it was Ethan, but it never was. One rainy afternoon, she sat alone in the cafe, sketching again, the habit she'd nearly forgotten. Her pencil traced the outline of Ethan's face from memory. She laughed softly through the ache in her chest. The door opened. She didn't look up right away, but then she heard that voice, calm, familiar, the one that used to turn her world upside down. "Old habits die hard, huh?" She froze. Slowly, she looked up. Ethan stood there holding an umbrella, rain dripping from his coat. He looked tired, but softer. Different. She couldn't breathe. "Ethan?" He nodded slightly. "Your brother came to see me. He told me everything." "The truth!" Her heart pounded. "And what truth is that?" "That you sold your pride to save someone you loved," he said quietly. "That you took a deal with a stranger because you couldn't watch your brother fall apart." She didn't know what to say. "Ethan, he raised a hand gently. "I was angry, Emily, but not because of the lie. I was angry because I didn't want it to end that way." Her eyes welled up. "You have every reason to hate me." "I don't," he said softly. "Because somewhere between pretending and lying, I started wishing it was real too." Emily stared at him, speechless. He stepped closer. "But before I say anything more, there's something you should know. My father..." His voice faltered. Her stomach dropped. "What happened?" Ethan took a shaky breath. "He's gone." The air left her lungs. "Oh my God, Ethan, I'm so sorry." He nodded, looking away. "He passed away last night. Peacefully. The last thing he said was, 'Don't lose her, son.'" Emily's eyes filled with tears. He met her gaze again. "I came here because I can't lose you twice." The room went silent, heavy with everything left unsaid. Before she could answer, Ethan's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, his face tightening. "It's the lawyers. I have to go handle the estate." He hesitated at the door, eyes full of emotion. "I'll come back tonight, if you'll let me." And then he was gone, leaving her standing there, heart racing, unsure if what she'd just heard was a second chance, or the start of another heartbreak. Can love survive after the truth? The cafe smelled like rain and roasted coffee beans when Ethan walked out that day, leaving Emily frozen by the counter. The world outside was gray and heavy, but nothing compared to what she felt inside. He had come back. He had forgiven her. at least a little. And then he was gone again, pulled away by a life she no longer belonged to. She stood there for a long time after he left, staring at the empty door, wondering if love really had a chance after so many lies. That night, Emily couldn't sleep. The rain hit her window softly, each drop echoing the same thought over and over. He said he'd come back. But people said a lot of things. Promises were easy when emotions were high. Keeping them was something else entirely. Still, a part of her refused to stop hoping. When you lose everything, hope becomes the only thing left. The next few days crawled by. Ethan didn't return that night, or the next after that. Emily went back to her cafe routine, pouring coffee, cleaning tables, forcing small smiles at customers who had no idea she was living half a life. Every morning she looked out the window, half expecting to see that same dark car pull up, but it never did. Daniel tried to cheer her up. "Maybe he just needs time," he said gently. She smiled weakly. "Time doesn't fix everything, Danny. Sometimes it just teaches you how to miss someone quietly." She still wore the bracelet Ethan had given her. Not because it meant ownership, but because it reminded her that for a moment, someone had truly seen her. Then one afternoon, a man in a dark suit entered the cafe. He looked serious, like someone who didn't come for coffee. "Emily Collins?" he asked. "Yes," she replied, confused. He handed her an envelope. "From Ethan Carter," her heart skipped. "Is he okay?" The man nodded. "He asked me to deliver this personally." Inside was a handwritten letter and a single key. Her hands trembled as she opened it. "Emily, if you're reading this, it means I'm not ready to face you in person yet. My father's estate has left me more tangled than I expected, but there's something I want you to see. The key belongs to the lake house outside town. I'll meet you there this weekend. If you don't come, I'll understand. But if you do, then maybe there's still something worth saving." Ethan, Emily's heart raced. The lake house. She remembered him mentioning it once. A quiet place his parents used to escape to when city life became too much. Sometimes, the hardest part isn't finding love, it's believing you deserve it. The weekend came faster than she expected. Emily drove out early, her hands gripping the steering wheel tightly. The countryside was calm, the sky streaked with the soft gold of evening. When she reached the lake house, her breath caught. It was beautiful, surrounded by tall pines and quiet water that shimmered under the fading sun. The air smelled of wet wood and memory. She hesitated before unlocking the door. Inside, everything was spotless. A fire burned softly in the fireplace. Ethan was sitting by the window staring at the lake. He turned when he heard her footsteps. "You came," she nodded quietly. "I wasn't sure I should." He smiled faintly. "Neither was I." They stood there for a moment, both unsure of what to say. Then Ethan broke the silence. "My father left me this place. Said I should come here when I needed to remember who I am." Emily looked around. "It's peaceful," he nodded. It was their favorite spot. They used to say the lake reflects what you feel. If you're calm, it's still. If you're lost, it ripples. Emily watched the water outside. "What does it look like now?" Ethan smiled sadly. "Restless." Her chest tightened. "I never wanted to hurt you, Ethan." "I know," he said softly. "And I didn't want to fall in love with someone who started as a lie. But I did." The words hung in the air, fragile and powerful. Tears stung her eyes. "I fell in love too. I just didn't think I was allowed to." He stepped closer. "Maybe we both punished ourselves for things we couldn't control." She looked up at him, her voice trembling. "What do we do now?" He hesitated, then reached out and brushed a tear from her cheek. "We start over. No deals, no lies, just us." It should have been perfect. It should have been enough, but something in Emily's chest still ached. A shadow she couldn't name. Just when everything seems right, life tests how real your love truly is. They spent the next few hours talking, really talking, about everything they never said before, about dreams, guilt, fear, and what love meant when it wasn't wrapped in conditions. For the first time, Emily felt light again. She laughed. Ethan laughed too, It felt like the beginning of something new. Later, they walked down to the lake. The moonlight danced across the water, silver and soft. Ethan picked up a small stone and tossed it, watching the ripples spread. "Funny," he said quietly. "The lake finally looks calm," Emily smiled. "Maybe it forgave us." He looked at her then, really looked, and she saw warmth in his eyes that she hadn't seen in months. He stepped closer, took her hand and whispered, "Emily, I don't care how this started. I just know I don't want it to end." Her heart swelled. "Neither do I." He leaned forward and kissed her forehead. Gentle, real, unhurried. The kind of moment that made the whole world feel still. For a while, they stood there in silence, hands intertwined, the lake glowing under the stars. It was peace, something both of them had forgotten existed. But peace never lasts forever. Every love story has a moment when fate knocks one last time. The next morning, Emily woke up to the sound of Ethan's phone ringing. He answered quietly, walking outside. She stayed in bed, half asleep, until she heard his tone change. When he came back, his face was pale. "That was the law firm," he said slowly. Emily sat up. "What happened?" "There's a problem with my father's estate," he said. "Apparently one of his business partners is contesting it. They think you—" He stopped, hesitating. "Me?" she asked, confused. He sighed. "They think you manipulated me for money, that the engagement was fraud." Her blood ran cold. "What? That's not true. Ethan, you know that's not true." "I do," he said quickly. "But they're threatening to take this to court. They're claiming you influenced my father's final will." Emily stood, trembling. "I didn't even know about any will." "I know," he said, rubbing his forehead. "But this could get ugly. The press might dig into everything, the contract, your brother's debt." She stepped back. "So what do we do?" Ethan looked torn. "Maybe you should stay away for a while, until I fix this." Her heart broke all over again. "You want me to disappear?" He hesitated. "I just don't want them to destroy you." Emily stared at him, tears welling in her eyes. "Or maybe you just don't want to fight for me again." He stepped forward, but she turned away. "Emily, don't," she whispered. "Every time I think we're finally okay, something reminds me that maybe we were never meant to be." And before he could stop her, she grabbed her bag and walked out the door. Sometimes, love isn't lost. It's just waiting for courage. It was raining again when she reached her apartment. The city felt colder than ever. She dropped her bag, sat on the floor, and cried until there were no tears left. For days, she avoided her phone. She didn't want to hear bad news. Didn't want to see headlines calling her a liar again. Then, one evening, Daniel showed up. "You should turn on the TV," he said, eyes wide. Emily frowned but grabbed the remote. On screen, Ethan stood at a press conference, facing dozens of cameras. He looked calm, but his voice was steady with conviction. "There has been a lot of speculation about my engagement to Emily Collins. Let me make one thing clear. She did not manipulate me. I'm the one who approached her. I'm the one who asked her to pretend. And I'm the one who fell in love with her, not the other way around." Reporters shouted questions, but Ethan continued. "If defending her cost me everything, so be it. Because some things are worth losing for the right reasons." Emily covered her mouth, tears spilling down her cheeks. Daniel smiled softly. "Looks like someone finally fought for you." Sometimes the ending isn't about loss. It's about coming home. The next morning, Emily returned to the cafe. The world looked brighter somehow, lighter. She brewed coffee, her hands steady for the first time in weeks. Then she heard the bell above the door. Ethan stood there, soaked from the rain, holding 2 cups of coffee, one for her, one for him. He smiled faintly. "I figured we should start where we left off." She blinked through tears. "You didn't have to do that press conference," he shrugged. "I didn't do it for the world. I did it because I was done pretending to be strong without you." She laughed softly, wiping her tears. "You're impossible." He stepped closer. "Maybe. But I'm yours, if you'll have me." The cafe was quiet, except for the sound of rain and 2 hearts learning how to beat again. Emily took the cup from his hand and whispered, "No contracts." "No lies, just us," he nodded. "Just us." And as they stood there, the rain easing outside, Emily finally realized something. Love wasn't about perfection or timing. It was about finding someone who stayed, even when everything fell apart. She smiled through her tears. "So what now?" Ethan grinned softly. "Now? We go home." But just as he said it, his phone buzzed again. He looked down, frowning slightly. Emily's smile faded. "What is it?" Ethan hesitated, reading the message. "It's from the law firm." Her heart skipped. "What do they want now?" He looked up at her, the faintest trace of worry in his eyes. "It's about your brother," Emily froze. "Daniel? What about him?" Ethan swallowed hard. "They're saying his debt wasn't completely cleared." "There's more." The sound of the rain grew louder, echoing the storm building inside her chest.